Okay. Hey, this is Stuchu, and I am back this time talking about Overwatch again with Volamel, also known as the last Overwatch content creator, also known as like the last Overwatch Highlander, so to speak. He has survived all of the others: Sideshow, Harsha,
I like
Albion.
that.
They've all gone. All you have left is Volamel. So that should be your new tag. I'm the Overwatch Highlander, so to
Overwatch
speak.
Highlander, I
Yeah.
like that. I might
Right?
have to steal
You're,
that.
you're, you're like literally the last one, mate. Like that's it. Right? Like everybody else is like either like me, like they do multiple games, so they technically don't count, or they've all
Mm.
moved on to join the league. Like every one of them,
Yeah.
every
But
single
do
one of
but
them.
do I lose my title
Yeah, you lose
when
your
it?
title if you actually join a team.
All
So
right. See, now that's an issue. See, now I can't actually join any teams because
yeah,
I lose my title.
yeah, it's like, but then you get paid. So I mean, is the title really
Yeah,
worth the money? We'll see. We will see.
the prestige.
Of course, you actually, if you join like a shit team like Mayhem or Dragons, then not only do you lose the title, you also lose like the cred. So like, listen, you might be a fucking genius, but I don't think even a genius could save those teams, so to speak.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. So getting off to a good start. So we have been through 3 stages of Overwatch League, and I just realized this. The first season of Overwatch ends in July. Am I crazy? That's true. That's right, right? Like that's fucking crazy. Okay, because as far as I know, then the Overwatch World Cup starts immediately, right?
A
Or
few months after, yeah.
a few months after. Okay.
Well, okay, so it should have, or it will have been like, how do I want to say this? There's multiple stages to Overwatch World Cup where there's going to be different nations competing at different locations. So
Mm-hmm.
like last year, like France was competing in China. So it will have already kicked off, but the finals for Overwatch World Cup will be culminating at BlizzCon
Yep.
in November.
Okay, November. So
So
yeah, because
not too.
here's my question then. Like, do you actually think an independent TO is going to make an open tournament in between? Like, I feel like outside of Korea, I think it's very unlikely at this point, just because the timing is so bad. Because if you just think about the way the timing goes, like everything's focused on Overwatch League, so obviously no team's
Yeah.
gonna play in there. No team's gonna play in that goes to an independent tournament. Then you have Overwatch World Cup, and that's gonna take. I'd say it would take at least like 2 to 3 months. Like that's and like everybody would be focused on that in a sense, because I feel like with the way the scene seems to work, that's like a very important event in of itself. You get because especially for players outside of the main regions, like that's the best way to shine. That's how Mickey got into Fuel basically, right? And so if everybody's focusing on that and everybody's focusing on this, then there's only like a month in between. And I've already heard reports like you're all burned out apparently. Like every one of you from the top to the bottom, the players, the coaches, the managers, the cooks, the photographers, the reporters, the casters, you're all burned out. And it's only been the first season. So I don't really know if there's actually going to be an independent tournament. What do you think?
I see. This is where your heart and your brain start to clash, and I honestly haven't given it too much thought on whether or not something could be in the works. I have personally haven't heard anything.
Mm-hmm.
I would like there to be something. I think there was, seeing some of these show matches, especially in Korea and the amateur scene and the contender scene, between some of the Western teams and the Korean teams is something that is fun for me. But you always have to question, how hard are they actually trying? It's a fun exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
There's always an asterisk there. But I would love to see some of the top contenders teams maybe play against some potential Overwatch League teams that do want to participate. Something similar to what ESL did back in League of Legends when they were putting on their events, where it was just an invitational tournament for
Yeah.
anybody who did want to participate, and you did get to see some matchups that you wouldn't normally get to see. So yeah, I would like to see it. Who would put it on? I mean, I guess MLG could.
MLG is the most likely candidate just because they're already
Exactly.
like attached to it.
They're basically in cahoots with Blizzard. Not to say that's a bad thing. I mean, take that with however you would like, but
But I mean, if it's like a regular MLG tournament, they wouldn't do that usually, because a regular MLG tournament, like they've always been very hyper focused on the open aspect.
Okay.
Right. So like
Yeah.
like there are a few times they've done invitationals, but not all the time. See, what I was thinking of, I was thinking, who's doing the Korean one now? It's not OGN. It's somebody else.
No, it's NBC.
NBC. Oh, okay. NBC is back. Okay, that's a bit different. Because I was thinking, if it was like GOM TV, because the GOM TV did the StarCraft one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like what I do is I do something like Overwatch League versus contenders, just a straight up, just like all the best ones versus all the best ones, winner take all, $100,000.
Yeah, I think that would be really high.
Something crazy like that, right? I think I think that'd be fun because I got a belief that some of the contender teams would beat the shit out of some of these really bad Overwatch League teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's very likely, actually. I think like at least 3 of these teams are going down.
Oh, definitely.
And after that, you can get upset.
Maybe not like a very hard loss, but they could.
They would get taken out, right? Like that's my guess. Like some of them get dominated, some of them might be close, but I think the top contender teams could actually take some of these Overwatch League teams out.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
And so, all right. So here's my question for you: so you want to start from bottom to top or top to bottom again?
What did we do last time? Did we do top?
I actually do not remember.
Let's do bottom to top.
All right. So my personal dream is the 040 for Shanghai Dragons. I know the rest of the world's against me, but you know what? You know what, the rest of the world? Think about this. You all believe in home crowd advantage. You all believe that the power of the crowd can somehow propel the team forward and make them great. But as it turns out, all of your power is less than mine because Shanghai Dragons keep losing and I keep winning. And so my question is, will Shanghai Dragons manage the 040? Will they do the unthinkable? They will do the impossible. They will be the greatest benchmark of failure we have ever seen in any esport. So great that even the likes of Feel and Mayhem have been overshadowed by their greatness. Can they do it?
You know, I keep saying that they could do it, and I keep giving them lots and lots of chances. But I really do think it's going to come when everybody least expects it. So it's hard for me to say whether or not it can happen in stage 4. If I was to give it a fair prediction and a fair shake, the map pool, has been released and it is not too janky. You have a lot of very standard maps that we've played on for a very long time. Junkertown's out, so you lose kind of that advantage because it is such an odd map to play against, and it kind of deviates away from a lot of the other strategies that apply to other maps. So that's kind of going against them. We still don't know exactly what patch we're getting. I think there are confirmed rumors that we are not playing on the reworked Hanzo patch, which is interesting. But is Brigitte going to be enabled? Is she not? It's still kind of up in the air. I would assume she would be, but until I see it, I'd rather not speculate too much. But there's a lot of things going against them. If Brigitte is kind of enabled, then that could play into their hand because it's going to throw a lot of people off potentially. But it's really hard to give them the benefit of the doubt at this point. Yes, they are improving. Doesn't matter. It's hard to catch up in that sense. It would take some colossal failures from a lot of these other teams or some potential in-house arguments per se, but I'll probably just have to go with the safe answer of no. They might not get that win.
Victory for me, yes,
because it's hard to predict them. They could go 2-3 against Philly, like you mentioned before the show, and they could go 0-4 against Dallas.
But they will somehow always clutch defeat from the jaws of victory. That's my tagline. It's incredible. In all the wrong ways, it's incredible.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so speaking of colossal failures and people and personal destruction of a team, they are playing the Dallas Fuel first. And as far as I know, Effect is coming back. Is that right for Stage 4?
From my understanding, yeah.
Yeah, so thank God Effect is coming back. My God, this team needed him so badly. This team isn't even a team without Effect. Thank God he's coming back. I hope the analyst desks fuck up again. I hope they say Shanghai Dragons 3-0. I hope Effect hears that. And I hope he destroys the Shanghai Dragons. And we don't even need to go over the Dallas Fuel. They are a literal wreckage. Like, do you have any other metaphors you want to put out there? Because if not, I'll just keep going about how terrible this team has become.
I'll let you.
Okay.
I'll let you continue. You feel like you've got a lot of gunpowder to burn, so
yeah. So
I guess please go ahead.
So basically, in like the 80s, the 70s, the 90s, everybody used to think in their minds, man, what a great future the world will become. We will have these futuristic like cyberpunk, like metropolises or whatever. We'll have flying cars. We'll teleport. We'll do all this kind of crazy shit. As it turned out, though, it turned out to be a dystopian society. It turned out all of humanity has been destroyed. Civilization is dead as we know it. From what? I don't know. It could be zombies. Could be future robots. Could be whatever. And that is actually the Dallas Fuel. And Effect is the last man standing against the darkness. And please, Effect, please win just this one series against Shanghai Dragons. Then you can rest. Yes, that is that is completely accurate.
At times, yeah, it does feel like that. It really does, where he, has to pull his team up by his own bootstraps and really just mechanically outplay everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of very rudimentary game plan, I think, that Dallas Fuel goes into this with at times, where, they are kind of rebuilding from square one again, and that's the one kind of...
Hey, but they learn from their mistakes, and they've made the most mistakes of anybody. Even more mistakes than Shanghai Dragons, believe it or not, despite the record.
I would hope so. I would hope they would take each of their mistakes in stride and continue to learn from them. Whether or not they do that, that's up to I guess the community to decide.
Uh-huh.
But it's rough for them. I think that if the meta is going to shift as much as people expect it to, they might have a chance at performing fairly well in Stage 4. It seems like Coco's been brought back into the fold. Maybe he's a pocket Brigitte player. Maybe he's insane. Maybe that's the hero that reactivates Coco and brings Dallas out of the kind of depths of hell. Whether or not that happens, it's almost impossible to say. At the beginning, looking at the preseason, it was impossible for us to predict that Dallas was going to be this
terrible,
this low. Exactly.
Yeah.
So having them, spring back from the jaws of defeat is almost as equally as hard to predict.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were going to do it, I would kind of guess it would be now.
All right. So here's my question: how many players do you actually keep in this lineup?
So this is something that I've kind of pondered on for a bit.
Because I think you only keep like one. And that's a fact. Like, I think you get rid of everybody else.
That is a strategy you could employ. You could just make him your career kind of franchise player and build a team around him to facilitate him, which is fair. I think that's a viable strategy. Weirdly enough, I think that keeping someone like Siegel around and perhaps building with him in mind could be interesting, because he is seemingly so selfless in a sense. He was brought on to play projectile. From my understanding, he is. From my understanding, he came into this team under the guise that he was going to be playing projectile DPS, and the team was going to be playing around him, and that's exactly when things started to kind of fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Where people were added, things didn't pan out the way they were, the whole system went to shit, and they were kind of, I don't want to say he wasn't given an ultimatum, because I feel like I don't want to, that's putting words in his mouth.
If he was given an ultimatum, we would have heard about it. Let's be real.
Yes. but he has moved away from his role that he was kind of allegedly
Known
signed
for,
as,
yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly. And that's something I have to commend. And he's excelled at it for the most part, and he has shown that flexibility, and I think that's something that is going to continue to outweigh speciality. With the way that Blizzard wants to patch the game, where it seems like each stage there's a new meta, there's a new way to play the game. So having somebody on board like Siegel could prove to be invaluable. If not, just having his brain. He is very, very intelligent.
I mean,
Yeah.
Listen, it's great and all to have intelligence, but
Sure.
it doesn't really matter if you have like a team that listens to nobody or anything.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you were gonna build around anybody, I think Effect would be one of them. And on the inverse of that, if you didn't want necessarily just a crazy firepower all-star, I think you could actually bring Siegel into the fold and make him a franchise player.
So you would go with Siegel? Like it doesn't just have to be one. It's just gonna be like combinations of players.
I don't think you have to choose either one. I think either one.
So I think you're going with like both, right? That's kind of the feeling I'm getting.
You could do both of them.
Yeah. Because like you just put Effect on Tracer, then you just have the other guy switch around, so to speak.
Sure. You could do that.
Because Tracer's never going to leave. Let's be real.
I haven't seen enough of the new meta yet, but I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead. She's just gonna be very difficult to play.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess like she will never leave just because her kit's like ridiculous.
Yes, it is very, very strong, but they keep adding more and more hoops of flaming death with alligator pits and tasers that you have to keep jumping through. So the more of that's added, the filter kind of weighs down on the weaker tracers and gives them something else to play. But you could still play Tracer. I think that she won't go away like you mentioned, but I think that she's not going to be as common. I think you'll have specialists.
Basically like Houston Outlaw is going to keep getting away with these weak ass tracers in a sense.
Yeah, you probably could. You could find strategies even in in tracer metas that have been more dominant. I think Houston in particular. I think you could have crafted a strategy to assist them or build them up a little bit higher, but they just aren't given enough time to be able to do so.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could get away with it.
Okay. All right. So Mayhem, the only thing I'm going to say about them is Saya player is really good. I don't really know what else there is to say. Like I should have picked him for like the best DPS in the league. Like it's either him or Carpe in my opinion. I'm not exactly sure which I'd give it to. But like basically, if you somehow drag that team into wins, you're pretty good.
He's very good.
Yeah, and I think he will survive the purging that is likely to come for the Florida Mayhem. What do you think?
Okay, so what do you mean by purging?
Basically, this team needs to rebuild also. Like so I think they're gonna just like change.
It is an odd.
Like I don't actually know the Misfits guy, but I look at this table and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I am the second worst team in the league. Are you really satisfied with just being the second worst team in the league? Like, I don't think you are. Like, I feel like you've spent so much money on this. Like, you want to at least, like, be competitive.
For sure.
So
I would definitely agree with that.
So I feel like everybody's going to get taken out. Except for Saya player and a few, like one or two others that'll, like, survive this upcoming hit.
That's the strange thing with the team is that they have just kind of injected Koreans into their roster and just hope for a boost in standings, which it has looked to kind of
work. I mean, it's better than before.
Work
right?
would be a work. It definitely has been better than before. Saya player in particular, he does kind of overlap with another one of their players' logics, but there's ways around that specifically Philly has shown to be really impressive with by putting in Snillo to allow Carpe to flex off, stuff like that. So they have a lot of talent, but I don't know exactly what they want to do because you probably do want to keep Awesome Guy and Saya player. They work well together. It seems like Saya player probably is or was one of the best, hit scan players or just, players outside of Overwatch League. Now you've got him into the fold. You probably don't want to let him go coming into stage or season 2. But from there, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. They could go full Korean. I don't see that happening personally. I'd be surprised. But
Yeah.
if they did want to be, a top team and they did want to invest, the time and money into it, that would probably be one way to get immediate results. You already have a Korean coach. You have Mineral, who has taken a step back, but has proven to be a incredibly obviously I can't speak for him, but he seems incredibly intelligent and very resilient. His team has not looked good, and he continues to kind of facilitate healthy discussion and be a really great coach. So I think that that's possible. But outside of that, yeah, I don't know what they do. They could add some more support players, just to add a little bit more parity to exactly who they run and where they run. Maybe rekindle some motivation that may have been lost. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I think there's definitely some roster changes that need to happen. But I don't know if killing it is the best way. It's that one's that
one's more iffy, just because if you just think about the way this team worked compared to Fuel or Shanghai Dragons, obviously Shanghai Dragons already tried and they completely failed, so they have to blow that up. Like I don't know what you want me to say, man. 0-30, come on. Even if they won the rest of even if they somehow went, actually that wouldn't be true, but even if they somehow won one or two more, that wouldn't salvage this. Fuel, you have to blow it up just because we already know everything is gone down in the Fuel. None of it's good. Mayhem, they already fucked up initially with only going 6 players. So it's actually a bit harder to judge them in that sense.
Yeah, they are probably one of the better teams in that bottom 3 category. They already gimped it themselves from the beginning, so it's you're not sure if you actually gave them a fair shot. Exactly.
But it's
and that's the same kind of mentality that I look at Shanghai as well, because it's they brought in
everybody late.
They look better, but it's way too late, and the integration has proven to be a little bit more arduous than what people might have expected. Just plug in the DPS and they just work. It's no, there's a lot more to it than just that. So.
And I think Dragons are kind of fucked in a sense, because if you just think about if you assume for a moment there is at least one more Chinese franchise coming into this league. If I was an up-and-coming or talented Chinese player, I would not want to play with the Shanghai Dragons, because you've already seen the immense amount of failure come out of them in terms of everything they've done. So I just wait for that other franchise to show up, and then I join that franchise. So I feel like Dragons are done. They're roast. Right?
They probably will always be, playing on the logic that there is going to be, or there potentially could be another Chinese edition.
Yeah.
They probably will always be looked at as the second tier, no matter what.
Yeah,
they could win.
And unlike
many games, but
unlike a traditional sport like basketball or whatever, you can't tank and then get a draft that'll save you. That's not happening here. You're just screwed. You have stuck with yourself this rep as being terrible. At least at Fuel, you have a guy like Effect, so maybe that can make something happen. With Mayhem, you have a guy like Seiya player. With Dragons, none of the Chinese players are going to go with you. Yeah. So I actually think they probably should go all Korean at this point, because I feel like all the good Chinese talent won't want to play with them. Eventually.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you wanted to see a boost, I think you definitely keep the Korean players that you do have, because they have proven to be big staples.
Workable, right?
They're workable, they're marketable, they're fairly good.
I think Adu is really good.
That was really good. He was one of those players that popped up on my radar way back when. I think he was subbing for MVP Space and Meta Athena in some invitational, and his numbers were off the charts, crazy good Genji. Granted, it was a short amount of playtime, so I was like, maybe he just had a good game.
Yeah.
I'll keep an eye on him. And then he comes into Overwatch. I kind of added him to my hypothetical Overwatch League team. If somebody wants to give me $20 million, I probably would have picked him up. but and then he pops off and he goes crazy on Genji, and
Yeah, I think
it was.
Yeah,
Great.
I think Adu and Fearless are probably the best two players on that team. It's my guess. All right, let's talk about a team that's probably out unless they pull Miracle Run Shock. What I mean by out is like they already lost too much in like the first few stages.
Yeah.
It's hard to like make a comeback at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there like a change in the roster you want to see coming into stage 2, or is there like a specific like type of thing you want to see them improve as a team? Because I feel like their biggest problem is like their youth and experience, in a sense.
Okay. Yeah.
But
that could have been solved with their new coaching addition. They did get the head coach from Boston Uprising.
Like I don't maybe he will teach them the ways of Huck. I don't know. Maybe I've heard some really like fucking crazy stories about Boston Uprising. I actually cannot repeat them, so I will tell you after this is over.
Okay.
But yeah, basically, as far as I know, just when you consider like young players, like I don't think you can necessarily assume they'll ever get over it. Like maybe they can, maybe they can't. We don't know. You have to just give them time.
For sure.
And this is like why I started off this entire thing with like the question of, you think it's going to be an independent tournament? Because if there was an independent tournament, I'd say Shock is like one of the first teams I'd specifically send that team out to play, because that team needs experience on bigger stages. So that's what I was thinking for this team. But it's like this is like a Mayhem situation in that like Mayhem gimped themselves, but like Shock were gimped by the age limit. So it's hard for me to like judge how they could have done. So I think like stage 2 is when they actually start.
And it's sad because I really graded them pretty highly after a couple of their first early performances in stage 3. They had probably the best Sombra player in the league.
Yeah.
Architect came in and showed that he wasn't only the boy wonder, but he could be the second coming of God. Pulling out, Widowmaker.
I mean, he can at times. He's still not there yet. Not there yet.
I don't know.
Listen, when I think of God in Overwatch, I think of like two players. I think of Jonak, and then I think of Fleta. Like those are the two guys I think of when I think of God. And he hasn't reached out state yet, because that's my opinion.
No, for sure. I completely agree. I think that's more of a team thing, where he doesn't necessarily have the team synergy. He's. I
mean, Fleta is on Soul Dynasty. Like, let's see.
That is another one where he still looks great. Still putting up huge numbers. But, I mean,
Fleta was trained for this from youth. He was from the Flash Lux, and he has gone from Flash Lux to Flash Lux in a sense.
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but
it's comparable. It's comparable.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he just had to play with Miro for like 3 stages before everybody realized he really was trash. Whatever.
I don't want to go off on a tangent, and we can talk about Soul in a minute, but Shock, yeah, I completely agree. I want to see them a little bit more, tried and tested. I want them to kind of go through the fire of season 2, and I think they'll come out really talented, and I think they're going to come out gunning for season 2. What happens stage 4? It's so hard to tell because we don't know what patch we're on, but they are a incredibly young team. A lot of potential, a lot of flexibility. We'll see what happens.
I will say this for the Shock. There was actually this quote from Kobe Bryant. He was talking about LeVar Ball. I don't know who that is. Apparently some basketball player, some young basketball player. I don't know. I don't watch enough basketball to know, but he had this great quote. Basically said, if you're this young, talented player, you have to have a kind of patient impatience.
Okay.
And basically what he said was that you in your mind, you realize you are building for the future, right? Because you have to gain that experience to become great. But you have to be impatient in the sense that you have to still believe that this is your season, that this is the season you're going to win. And even if you fail, that experience of going all out, of trying to win, of pushing yourself to the limit, that's the mentality. That's what you're going to need when you're actually good enough to win. So I don't actually know if I've seen that for the Shock yet. So I feel like because I feel like a lot of players they kind of get stuck on this weird mental hang up of, oh, I have potential, I'll try next time, but like they never realize like next time might never come.
For sure.
So like that's like kind of my problem with like Shock's mentality. It's like, oh, we're gonna build for the future. It's like, yeah, you can build for the future, but to build for the future, you have to have that like crazy fucking mentality right from the beginning. And I don't necessarily know if that's the case with these guys. I don't know if it's not the case with these guys either. Like, how would I know? But that's just something to look out for, because if they like lazy, like, listen, I don't think Stage 4 is going to be great for them, like, because they have to go through a shitload of wins to get there.
Yeah.
But if they legitimately try, that's at least showing me that they have some kind of grit to them.
For sure.
Right.
And that's, you bring up a good point, because, you know, it's not only just the players, but the coaching staff have to be invested in these players as well. You know, a lot of these contracts are just 1-year contracts. So if you are invested, and you know, they publicly have come out and said that they are invested in these players and they do want to build for the future, we'll have to see what happens when the contracts are up and who continues to get a contract, because you can't say that you're invested in the players and then, you know, get rid of all of them.
Shout out to Golden Guardians. Hey, shout out to Golden Guardians. I just saying, it's a very very good example.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
All right. So yeah, I guess we will go on to the next team in the standings, Gladiators. And they actually look like they will make the playoffs despite being like this low in the standings overall. So I don't know if you want to talk about Gladiators first, or the fact that the Atlantic Pacific division is fucked up. Which one you want to talk about first?
Let's start with Gladiators, and then I'm sure we'll digress into how the playoffs work.
So Gladiators is the story of, and still the story of, Fisher's Revenge. Well, it will actually always be the story of Fisher's Revenge, because so long as Fisher is the best tank in the league, and I still think he is, it'll always revolve around him, because there is, as far as I can tell, no other tank that like can pull as much bullshit out of like his ass and then win the game as much as he does.
There's only one.
There's only one. Like, nope. I've never seen, like, I've seen a decent amount. Like, I haven't seen all of them. I've seen a decent amount. And it's like the only guy is like falling off the side of the map, comes back and like takes out two. It's like, oh yeah, that's a Fisher play, right? So what do you think of this team?
I had a discussion with a couple of friends of mine that you know, partake in some Overwatch League, you know, mumblings, and I posed to them the question, you know, if you look at the archetypal way that the Philadelphia Fusion play their game, you know, Fraggy goes in, creates the space, the DPS, you know, are all-stars, and they clean up the mess, whereas Fraggy kind of is playing this hyper-aggressive berserk style, runs in, you know, makes the huge delta and allows Carpe to work.
Yep.
If you apply that same logic to the LA Gladiators, you kind of see a similarity where Fissure does get in there, and a lot of the kind of amazing star plays are coming from him. Not to mention that, yes, their DPS line is incredibly flexible and incredibly talented, but you see some similarities where they kind of both are kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And that's scary when you look at teams like what London could be, what New York is, what Seoul could be, what a team like Valiant could be.
Yeah.
I do want to see something a little bit more nuanced. A team like Boston, again, something that is incredibly fundamental, but can prove to be just amazingly explosive, and just the amount of it. I don't want to sound too flowery, but it does seem just like this weird dance that they do, and it's just like this perfectly choreographed little routine that they do in their dives, and it is probably the best dive team in the league.
Boston,
well, at least they were. Yeah, Boston.
Yeah.
Mistakes came in and still looked really good.
Yeah.
But LA, if Fissure doesn't pop off and, you know, the DPS don't have that room to work, they tend to fall apart. And it's sad because the team does have the talent to be one of the best teams in the league and rival for probably top 4. But I think a lot of people are really starting to pick them apart the same way that Philly was starting to get kind of figured out, where if you do pressure the front line of the LA Gladiators, they tend to just back themselves up into a corner and you dictate the pace of the game. Whereas if you give them the tempo, they will run you over like a 4x4 truck.
Yeah,
800 miles an hour. So yeah, I do want them to kind of change how Fissure plays. Yes, giving him the reins has worked this far, and he can pull games straight out of
wherever
places where the sun shouldn't shine.
Yeah.
But I think that is coming to a head, and you probably need to take those reins back and reel him back in a little bit. You have an incredible talent in Surefour now. He's proven to have that grit that you mentioned with the San Francisco Shock. He comes in and shows incredible performances on Widowmaker that I personally
didn't think
I can't say that I was expecting. I didn't know that.
But I already sold him, man. I already sold him. It's like you're going to the trash bin. I will never see you again. But then he climbed out of the trash and proved the hype was real. So
definitely,
right?
I was thoroughly impressed. I thought that he really showed up. And if you play around him, maybe let him kind of dictate some of these games, and allow that DPS synergy to work a little bit better. Granted, again, you also have to take into consideration that stage 4 is going to be a new meta.
Yeah.
What exactly is going to get played? It is still kind of up in the air. Will Brigitte be even in the game? Is she going to dictate the meta as much as people are saying? It's hard to say, but I do want them to kind of maybe adapt a little bit more with how they play their game. I think they are just a little bit too one-dimensional for me.
Here's an interesting point about we talked about the Fusion and Gladiators, because I agree basically. I actually thought they were very similar teams. Very similar, except the rate of skills reversed in both teams. Okay. Where Fissure is the best tank and Fraggy is a good great tank in this specific role. Yeah. Whereas DPS of Gladiators are good to great in their specific roles, but Fusion has Carpe, so it's I obviously consider Carpe better, right? So it's inversion. So I thought obviously they should fuse together, but since they can't do that, basically what I see from both of these teams is they both came into this league without necessarily a great idea of how they were going to play the game around their players, right? And Fusion had a weird variety of players, so I don't necessarily blame them. And Gladiators were missing a key piece the entire time until they got Fissure. So by the time they both rise up, it's because they both teams go hard all in on their specific styles, and that's gotten them this far. But here's the thing: do they have enough time to learn and adapt and still be one of the best teams? Because when you learn and adapt, there is usually a drop off before you go back up. Do they have enough time to do that? I'll go ahead and say I don't think Fusion have enough time, considering where they are in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah,
they don't have enough time to do that bullshit. In a sense, they've run out of time. Gladiators, they can. So, but will they is a more of a weird question, because I don't know if they will. But Fusion, I just don't think they have the time, because they need the wins. They need the wins now.
They do, and there's a lot of things that go into a team's performance. I'll say that. I would love to say that Philly could do it, because I think that having a star DPS player allows you to adapt to the meta maybe a little bit more fluidly. Not to say that Fissure can't play other tanks, but obviously he is probably most known for his Winston Reinhardt.
Yeah.
Now, are we going to see an Orisa-dominated meta? Probably not. Are we going to see those two characters removed from the metagame? Probably not. But it does limit how good your star player is if your star player is a tank, because he can only basically play two different heroes, at any one.
He's already broken the bar of how much impact you're usually supposed to get. He's already broken that bar, so it's how much more can he really do?
And that's the scary part, where you look at Carpe and he does have a Genji, he does have a crazy good hit scan. We all know this, so he can just adapt and become that fluid piece that Philly needs for the incoming metagame in stage 4, whatever it might be. Whether or not that happens or not, it's up for discussion. So I would love to say that they can. I think they have the potential to do it, but whether or not they do is up for question. But to better answer the question, I do agree that LA probably has the better chance here, just because
of how the divisions
they
work
also
out.
Yeah, I mean that as well, but they also have incredibly fluid players, and while they do fall into that same archetype of just having an aggressive main tank and playing that very all-in aggressive style, I think that they probably have the better suit. There again, you know, maybe Sato comes in stage 4 and wrecks house.
Yeah.
It's tough to say.
I can't wait for that. I actually already have an article written for that. I've had it prepared for a long time, because my God, this guy is going to he's going to anger a lot of different people, both in the league and in Korea.
Sure.
Right. So we will see how that goes, and he must be real good, because here's my reason.
I certainly hope so.
You've waited 3 stages for this guy. This guy better be like the Messiah sent from heaven, because you've waited so long to play this guy, right? All right, so we'll go back. I went a bit off topic, but basically, what do you think of this like format, this Atlantic Pacific Division crap? Because I actually don't think it works.
It's strange, especially in the beginning, because nobody really had any idea how good some of these teams were going to be.
Yeah, like nobody could have known, right?
One side. Well, you could guess. I think a lot of people's, if you look at some of the predictions,
some of them were completely off. Like actually, almost all of them were off. Because everybody thought Fuel was going to be good. So like, you already know this is off.
Everybody thought Fuel was going to be good. Everybody thought New York was probably going to be, you know, a middle of the pack team. Or, you know, maybe top 4. You know, now they're
by far the best,
partly large, the best team in the league. So I think yes, there were some errors, but I think everybody had a rough estimate. You know, a lot of people thought Boston was going to be, you know, dead to last. You know, turns out they're actually one of the top teams. Well, at least this stage. Yeah. I still think they contend for top 4, no matter what stage you put them in. But for the most part, I think everybody kind of had a good read on what was happening. But there again, you know, you have those outliers that just blow everybody's expectations out of the water. And yeah, it's rough to see this kind of function this early on, because
I mean, I knew it was going to happen, because here's the trick. Here's the trick. Basically, I actually don't know if this is true, but it's always proven true for me. In a playoff round where there's 8 different teams or players, 2 of them will be upsets. And if you think about it that way, and you think, okay, there are 12 teams here, there's at least going to be three teams that are not going to go anywhere where you predict them to go. As it turned out, Dallas, Boston, and depends on what you think the third one is, because it could have been a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, it could be a lot of different teams. Right. You could look at, you know,
New York if you underrated them, Shanghai Dragons if you overrated them. Like, because I saw some weird ass lists where like they put Shanghai Dragons super high, right? Like Fusion, like everybody thought they would be bad, right? So it was like, a bunch of these different teams like worked out different ways, right? So like just based off of that alone, like if that's like a very weird like rule of thumb I use, but basically if you can't like legitimately rank these teams off of past performance, then I don't think this like format should have been put in play.
Definitely. It was something that, you know, was forced early on to extend into the latter seasons that they, you know, were just introducing now.
Like, I don't know why they couldn't do it later, but
exactly.
Right?
You could have just introduced it in season 4 and season 5 when you have, you know, the 27, you know, national and
whatever
teams.
Yeah, whatever teams you're using, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Then it makes a lot more sense when there's a lot more parity. There's more chances for there to be upsets, and you know,
when like
not have a complete.
When it actually makes sense to like pair off teams in local regions, because right now everybody's in LA. Does it matter?
Yes.
Not really, no. But like when they're, because technically the real Overwatch League is supposed to start when everybody's flying and shit.
Yes, exactly. When it's like parading circus.
And at that point, like it does make sense, because it makes more sense to like not like have everybody play against each other just because you're flying everywhere. And this gets to my other point. None of the teams all play each other like evenly.
Yes.
Like, what the hell's that? I don't know what that's about.
Not sure myself, to be honest with you.
Cause
Doesn't make much sense.
Because you could probably write articles like which team got to play Dallas Fuel, Mayhem, and Dragons the most.
Yeah,
that team got lucky as hell.
Yeah, and you could look at how, if there's a correlation between who got the kind of easier draw and who they didn't have to play through the 4 stages, and
then if you want to go really deep, you could be like, okay, well this team like literally got lucky every time, because every time they played, the team that was supposed to be good happened to hit and did perform that day. There's a bunch of weird shit like that too, but that's like just part of the game. But the fact they can't play everybody's like real iffy to me. It is
strange that there are just some teams that you just happen to dodge. You could just dodge the best team in the league, and oh great, now my record looks way better than what it should, because I probably would have had a loss.
Yeah, so it's like I'm very iffy about that.
That's fine.
There's like a shitload of games, but it's like, are these actually like accurate? Like, even if you just split stage or stage, are these actually accurate readings of the teams? I'm not necessarily sure that I can say that's true, right? Like, because they don't play each other all equally, so it's very, very off for me anyway.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and then of course I still think it's weird to have playoffs that don't mean anything. You know what I mean? Like, these playoffs, like I will give respect to the teams that are playing in them, because they actually legitimately look like they want to win. So I'll give respect to that, but like in reality, like they shouldn't be trying to win, but they are trying to win, so that's great for them.
Yeah.
So obviously ego is what really matters in the end. I'm sure they didn't really care that much about the prize pool.
Probably
a little. Maybe they're like it's a bonus, but it's not the reason they were playing so hard, right? But like
they are just competitors at heart, and they just want to win.
Yeah. So I feel like this stage thing needs to change. They credit to them, they're already doing it, but it's like it still feels weird. I'm still not sure. Like, I'm still not sure if you should even do it, or if you do it, like, you do it less. I'm not, to make it mean more. I'm not exactly sure.
Would you rather it be something similar to the way that the NALCS does it, where it is kind of like a points-based system, so you qualify for the end of season playoffs based on how many or how well you did in the past stages? Is that something? And that's something that Monty's been throwing around.
Like, I think that's decent, but I think it's like the first problem you have to actually look at is like the points thing.
Okay.
Because I don't think it makes sense for like points in the first stage to count as much as points in the fourth stage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Like, he's talked about that too, and I agree. Like that's like really off to me. That doesn't make much sense. But
it's completely different.
Like, here's my problem basically is you have this many stages.
Sure.
But I'm not a huge fan of round robin league format anyway. I feel like you could probably use like one of them as a straight up tournament.
Okay.
Like a straight up like Apex or something. But like the problem with that is like shit teams will be like, whoa, we need that time on stage. Please show us more Shanghai Dragons so everybody can cheer and then cry. Shout out to the crowd for always being silent when Shanghai Dragons lost, as if they died again for the 30th time. But yeah, like I just like, even though like that's my preferred format, like I don't think it's possible. So I guess in this world where we live in with Overwatch League and how it stands, like I just think you need to add something fresh to the playoffs that aren't just straight up like fights. Okay. Like basically because if you're not, either you make it points, either you incentivize it with points, like what Monty was saying, or in my opinion, like you have to go WWE on this shit. Like you have to like hype up that drama. Like listen, if I was in control of stage 4, by the end of the stage 4, assuming Philadelphia Fusion is in the playoff rounds, I'd literally have all the Koreans show up and like just try to take Sato down and see what happened. Or something crazy like that. Like something drama fueled like that. I don't know. That's just my feeling. But we will have to see. I personally believe like here's how I would do it, I guess.
Okay.
You can't have it too complicated, but you have to have it like fast enough. You have to do some kind of combination of the group nominations of Apex, and then you have to have it like a dojo system or something, like quick. It's probably I'm not exactly sure how I would do it exactly, but that's my thinking, so to speak.
Okay.
And then the guy who decides the dojo system would be the first seed. So he like none of the other seeds matter. You just get put where the first seed wants you to put. Maybe.
Sure.
I'm not exactly sure. I have to think about it some more. I didn't really think about it, but basically, I just want drama. I just want people throwing chairs. I want Sato saying "fuck you, everybody, I am the greatest." All that good shit.
I can get behind it. It makes my job a lot easier. If you make drama, it makes writing articles about you infinitely simple. So
yeah,
definitely.
So the next team up is Houston Outlaws, and I'll go ahead and say it. I think they hit exactly where they should have been. When I look at the team, they're like, yeah, this is a very solid team. They have pretty good players, some less so than others. Jake has been overrated by a lot, but whatever.
Sure.
Right? And then because they didn't really increase their firepower, they didn't really add new looks. I think they've basically hit the ceiling of potential they already had with this team, and this is the result of it. Am I off?
No, I think you're pretty spot on. This stage 3 was, my assumed prediction that they were going to be pretty good because of the way that the map pool interacted with their hero pool. Obviously they're known for having one of the better Junkrat players, and this was the stage with lots and lots of Junkrat maps, and they still couldn't seal the deal for a variety of reasons that they've kind of mentioned and touched on. But yeah, I don't see them doing that much better in stage 4. Again, I could be completely wrong. The meta could just be completely playing into their hands, and they could be amazing. But from what we've seen, and that's how I feel like you should do predictions. This is probably where they should lie, somewhere between 4th and 6th, I would guess.
Yeah.
Is Arhan enough to bring into this team and become amazing? No, I don't think so. At best, he could probably start to lead them in the right direction, because I do think they need to be a little bit more proactive, it feels like. They do feel a little reserved at times, where I would want them to kind of explode and really kind of show off a very Boston-esque dive style. And that's something that they've struggled with, is actually trying to play dive in some form or, some way. And with a map like, Gibraltar coming back into the meta, that's always been an incredibly good dive map. They have Linkser to play A and C. They just need somebody to play B. And you could argue that, Widow still runs really well on point B on Gibraltar, but you also could run dive. And that's probably a composition or an archetype that probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You could see heroes rotate in and out, but the idea of very mobile, very... burst specific damage or nuke, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
That archetype isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and I think that's going to be a staple for Overwatch forever.
Yeah.
So if you can't play the standard, how good can you really be?
Yeah.
And the best way to, I guess if you look at Arhan and you want to shine him in a positive light, he could lead them in the right direction, but I don't think that stage 4 is going to show some sort of crazy improvement from Houston. I think they're going to have to wait until season 2, and even then I think I got to give them a couple stages to kind of get acclimated to whatever new meta pops up next.
Yeah, basically, like, if you're not willing to play, here's my opinion, if you're not willing to play a standard, you have to be the paradigm shifter.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but like none of these guys are so incredibly good that they will shift the entire paradigm of the game. Yeah. There is a player like that already, but he's on New York, so you're out of luck.
Well, I think not to go off on a tangent, but I think he's already kind of shifted the paradigm and shown what a specific.
Yeah, he already shifted the paradigm. Like that's basically what I meant.
Yeah.
he shattered the paradigm. He actually has a syndrome named after him apparently in the league.
That's a medical term.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they don't have that player, and so you have to play standard because you're just not that good. I'm sorry, you're just not that good. You have to at least be able to play it, but if you can't, like this is like the limit of where you go.
I mean, they could force some sort of style, but it's gonna be hard.
All right, so here's my question, I guess, for both
Okay,
Houston and Fusion.
sure.
If you put one of them in the Pacific, do you think they make it in the top three, make it to playoffs?
Let me pull up.
Because I'm looking at their win records now. Fusion
Sure.
obviously already has better win record than Gladiators. Outlaws is even with Gladiators.
If you put
If you put one of
who
them
was
in,
it?
either
Was it
Fusion or Outlaws in the
Fusion
Pacific Division,
Outlaws? Do they take first seed? Is that
third
what you're
seed,
asking?
third seed.
Third seed.
Because I think that's possible. Just
Yeah,
looking at the
definitely.
numbers.
Definitely. Seoul bounces around at times. I think the top three in Pacific bounce around at times. Even the top four, they
Mm-hmm.
all kind of could shift around stage by stage and become, it shifts a lot for them. So adding in or swapping somebody out for Philly or Houston probably plays similarly into that theme where they could just be first, they could be fourth. I don't see them dropping below that, but yeah, definitely. I think they do really well.
Oh well, so I guess they got screwed by the Atlantic Pacific Division as well. Just pointing that
A
out.
little bit,
Just pointing that
little bit,
out.
little bit.
Okay, so here's a team that I think would have gone did get like the beneficiary of the Atlantic Pacific Division. Actually, I think all three teams did. To be honest, I think Dynasty, Valiant, and Gladiators all lucked out.
Oh,
But
definitely.
Valiant has been on the rise
Yeah.
after the memes of the in and out memes that defined them for the first two stages. Moon and Noah Winston have been proven right. That was a good talking to, and now
Mm-hmm.
they are one of the best teams, at least in the Pacific Division, and overall pretty good.
Yeah. They definitely show a lot of promise. They are another one of those teams that is maybe not young in terms of the overall age of their players, but
Mhm.
young in the sense that they haven't been together for very long, and this is basically just a brand new team. Um, what they do have going for them is a lot of potential with basically everybody on their lineup. You have Soon. I think he's a known quantity. I don't have to gush about Soon.
Yeah.
He is incredibly intelligent with the way that he plays Tracer, and he's proven to kind of have a serviceable Widowmaker and a bunch of other heroes. I think we've seen him on Junkrat and McCree. He has shown to be able to flex off of this Tracer player.
Hmm.
Bunny, I think that a lot of people slept on him, especially coming off of Soul. They Soul tried to pepper him in, didn't really work. But can you really blame him? You put him on Valiant and he shines like something that shines really bright. And
He's super explosive, basically.
yeah, definitely. I think Monty, if you listen to Waypoint and you listen to Monty talk about Bunny, I think he's completely right that he is a very individualistic Tracer, very similar to what Prophet
Like,
is and continues to be.
hmm
And once you get the synergy between him and Fate more on the same page, I think they're going to be an incredibly explosive duo. But the one kind of bad part is we haven't seen Bunny in his entire career basically off of Tracer, so I don't know what else he plays.
I mean, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Like everybody else was talking to me about like when I started watching Overwatch, I was like, oh, you gotta understand, man. Like, you need these players that have can play flex to deal with the patch. And I'm like, wait a minute. We're talking about like teams with like multi-million dollar like budgets or whatever. And you're telling me they won't just like buy a guy, won't just buy a guy to like fill in the hole when they need it. And then because here's my opinion is like generally speaking, outside of very specific instances, you're not going to get a flex player that's going to match up against a specialist in a particular meta. And the way this Overwatch League has planned out, they don't switch the patch until after each stage is over.
Yes.
So I feel like this game and the structure of the game is favoring the specialists over the flex players.
I would agree if people actually built their rosters that way.
If they
Because
built the
I
rosters
would
out.
argue, yes, in theory, I would agree. If you had enough roster space to facilitate basically, a specialist for each hero, then yes, I think that
Mhm.
that would be incredibly potent, incredibly potent. But with locking the roster at 12, and with the kind of greenness that a lot of these teams are coming into Overwatch with, and it just hasn't panned out that way. Personally, I think like the flexible.
Like, here's how I think it actually plays out in reality, then, right? Because obviously that's like theoretical. Like, that's how you would do it in a theory world where you can get as many players you want, and somehow they don't all want to kill each other. Like,
exactly.
Like, here's how I would think of this. Like, I would specifically pick players that, like, not only are they specialists, but like superstar specialists.
Sure, yeah.
And in the case of Bunny, I don't necessarily know if he's a superstar, actually.
I think so.
Like, I am still out on the jury on that. We will see. But basically, like, imagine a world where, like, for whatever reason, Jodak could literally only play Zenyatta. I wouldn't give a fuck. I would still, like, pick him up, right? Like, as it turned out, he's also, like, a great flex player, so it doesn't matter. But the point of it is, like, for the way you build a team is very similar, I think, to other team games. Is you get the polarizing player, you get the guy who is going to define your style first, and whether or not that guy is a flex player or a specialist doesn't matter. I just think it happens. Like, these guys usually tend to be more specialists than flex players. I don't actually know if that's the case. I should probably go count that. But in any case, at that point, after you get those guys, that's when you start filling in the roles for the rest. And then you get the specialist when you need it, so to speak.
That's a hard one to kind of quantify as well.
Yeah, because like we don't even know how these teams are constructed.
Oh, for sure,
right,
definitely. So. But not only that, but like it's hard to look at specific roles and look at how flexible they are, because obviously you look at DPS is the most flexible role in the game. You can play a ton of different things. But how flexible can a tank really be? They don't have a ton of things to kind of swap off onto. How flexible can a support be? They don't have a ton of other heroes to pick from. So
so unless you get like a guy who's breaking the game, like, and for those specific roles you're talking about, I can only name like 2 guys: Fisher for tank, Zenyatta, and I mean Jonak. I just call him Zenyatta now. Jonak for Zenyatta. Like, that's it, right? Like, I've seen the rest of the players, like they vary between good to great, but none of them like break the rule.
Nobody's really shattered the paradigm like you mentioned yet, at least.
Except for Jonak.
Yes.
And I guess in a sense, Miro. Here's actually a interesting question. Do you think Miro shattered the paradigm, or is he just ahead of the game? When he first came out at the World Cup.
Yeah, of course. I would say that he probably changed the way that I think people looked at how you could play Winston, and become that very mechanically dominant, offensive force, and not necessarily so much of a peeling factor, and not so passive, and you were kind of initiating the charge in. I think there were some people that were not given the stage to do so. Like, I think Fraggy probably could have done the same thing. Maybe not could have done the exact same thing, but played a very similar style.
I mean, he's certainly crazy enough, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, for his time, I think he was, very, very good for his time. And I think I would say that he kind of broke the paradigm and kind of changed the way that Winston's looked at the game. Okay. Yeah.
Great. So I guess that moves us to our next topic. See, that was the good part of Miro's career. Now, but there is a sequel, and much like many other movie sequels, it was actually terrible. And you'd wish you hadn't seen it, but it exists. It's out there, and it has tainted your memory forever. The Soul Dynasty. Soul Dynasty have come to the light. They have realized I was right all along, but they were 3 stages too late, and now they have benched Miro, and they looked around like, who is actually a better tank player than Miro? Apparently everybody on that team, including the support. Yeah.
Oddly enough.
Just as I always suspected. Actually, I didn't suspect that at all. I just thought you had to get out Miro at all costs. And
it does drop a strange narrative where, Jae Hong's been on this team for a long time now, and you bring in multiple different people, and, he's just some sort of angry mob boss, and, if you can't get anybody to do it right, I guess you better do it yourself. And he's proven to be correct so far
for the one game I saw him. Yes,
he's played 2, but they've looked fairly good so far. So we'll see what happens.
All right. So Dynasty is a team where the expectations are so high that anything
Mm-hmm.
other than first is considered a failure. But in their case, they're fourth. So this
Yeah.
is like a hyper failure. And so like people think of them in the same like light as Dallas Fuel, even though I think Dallas Fuel is actually like I don't know if you ever read this, but I actually wrote an article once about like the different levels of trash you are in in tiers. So basically, I actually consider like Soul Dynasty like recyclable trash, whereas I think of the Dallas Fuel as the trash that is like circling around the world in orbit, as in it's like so disgusting, but you can never, and it's like, and you know it's like just floating out there, but you can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just ruining the world. Whereas like with Dynasty is like, yeah, you know what, there are problems here, but you can reuse it, refix it,
Sure.
make it whole again. And also in this analogy, of course, the highest level you can get is not trash, but the trash man, a man who removes all of the filth from the world. That's obviously New York Excelsior.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
They are the great purger.
Yeah, they are throwing all these teams in the trash and cleaning the world and making it a better place.
Incinerators. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
It is Soul is an enigma as much as a lot of these other teams are as well.
Mm-hmm.
They have the potential to be some of the best team, one of the best teams. Like a lot of people predicted that they could be or would be, even through multiple stages. I think Reinforce mentioned that he thought that they were going to win. Was it stage
Yeah,
3?
they keep
Early
praying,
stage
but it's
3?
not happening.
Yeah, they're a fickle
I
bunch.
thought I used to think they were good until at the end of stage one, where I was like, okay, listen, Jonak's actually like too good for everybody. This game is over. This game is over.
Yeah, he's gonna call in his own nerfs sooner
Yeah.
or later. I think that Blizzard's
They can try, but like,
I
how
don't
would you
think-
nerf him? Like,
I think that I think he's shown some potential holes on how crazy Zenyatta could be played, where you have a hero like McCree where he has fall off damage at basically a similar effective range where Zenyatta doesn't.
mm-hmm.
So why bother running McCree? We could just run Zenyatta in the same spot. Now you get healing, you have one of the best ultimates in the game, and you can basically snipe people from range.
Yeah.
Seems pretty good to me. But you just have to have a player that actually can do that and operate within a team that allows you to do that. And he's shown that he can do that.
He's
and,
the only one so far. Like I know a bunch of these supports think they are Jonak the second. You are not Jonak the second, not yet.
I think we've seen a big rise in in the same sense that Fisher and Miro have shattered the paradigm. I think he's yes, there's the Jonak syndrome that everybody likes to talk about, but I think he has shown that this role can be played in a certain way, similar to what Boombox used to do in Europe, but to the nth degree and incredibly high levels. But that being said, he's also shown to be an incredible flex player. His Ana looks very good. His Roadhog looks great on Junkertown. I'd love to see what else this player can play, because if that's the case, then he could just be the best player in the league. I just want to see what else lies under the hood. Yes,
I just want to say this is like ridiculous.
Sure.
All right, man, it's not fair. How can we say he's really the best player when no other team can force him to actually do something different? Mm-hmm. That's how bullshit this is, but it's true. Mm-hmm. It's true. I do agree with you on that point. Like, I personally always favor the player who's going through worse adverse conditions as being the greater player, because obviously you're going through way more obstacles to get out. So it's actually why I thought like Fleta was always a really great player, despite Flashlucks being a complete trash bin of a team. And I still think the same thing for Soul Dynasty. So there you go.
Yeah, he's had his poor performances. I think I could count on one hand how many times he's looked to be the problem in those games. But there again, you could question, is that necessarily him doing that or taking those positions or picking those heroes, or is that the coaching staff that tells him, or maybe the leader in the team at the time is telling him to play those roles or positions? It's hard to say, especially when you look at a player who is as good as he is. But yeah, I would have to say that he's probably, I said it before and I'll say it again, probably one of the best players, if not the best player
in the league.
continuously in the league. And if given the perfect team to fit around him, I think you would see a similar performance.
Yeah,
You know,
just put him on New York. Just be the new libero.
Funnily enough, I've been tempted to make a video about it, but I would love to see him, you know, conceptually on Boston.
That would work. That would work.
I think that he fills a role
that they need,
that they're missing.
Yeah.
That a former player that did play for them once did.
Yeah, in a dream.
He does that. Yes, exactly. I think he fills the exact same role, and I think he does it better. Slot him in, you know, barring any communication or personality issues. I think that team would.
As far as I know, actually, Fleta has no personality issues.
I don't know that. No,
because like basically, as far as I know, like Seoul Dynasty were like super like wary of getting him. Like this was like an interview like a million years ago. They were super wary of getting him, but when they got him, they're like, wait, this guy's actually a great team player. What the fuck? I thought for sure he'd have like a huge fucking ego.
Right.
Right. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah, that's kind of like the impression I got. So I don't know if that's actually the case, but he could work. Like I see your point. I just don't think Dynasty will ever let Fleta go. Yeah. Like in the same way Feel will ever let Effect go.
Sure. I think that's a great strategy to approach your team with. You know, I think if you were gonna make anybody a franchise player on the Seoul Dynasty, it probably would be Fleta. I don't see much promise anywhere else. I think you could go the markability route and just keep the Lunatic High Core and, you know, work them until they're 45 and, you know, gray. But, you know, how a dynasty like is that going to be? And so I think Fleta probably is your one. Not, I wouldn't say saving grace, because this team just seems to pull magic tricks every week. You know, like I said, I tweeted about this, and I don't even necessarily hate this idea, but I wouldn't hate to see Fleta on Zenyatta. I you know, we've seen Toby on Tracer, we've seen Jaehong now on main tank. Who's to say that Fleta doesn't have a world class, you know, Jonak level Zenyatta? I wouldn't put it past him.
Maybe the two of them should team up. See what happens. All right. Actually, Fleta's actually ridiculous though. So I wouldn't put it past him actually if he did have like a world class Zenyatta. Like the problem though is like, here's the problem with Dynasty basically is like they feel like they need 3 Fletas. Like I'm not joking. I think like they need like 3 Fletas. Yeah. And that's like the problem. Like if you need like 3 like world class like players like that, I think you got a problem.
Oh, then you definitely have like some systemic problems. Whether or not this Band-Aid from Jaehong continues into stage 4, it's hard to see or even guess, because it seems very last minute. You know, like, oh, let's see what happens. You know, the stage is over. We're not gonna make playoffs. Like, why not just kind of see what happens? Yeah. Will that continue? We'll have to see. But yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they would put him on Zenyatta if Zenyatta is even still meta. So,
all right,
we'll have to see.
So we're gonna go to a team that's a bit confusing to me. Still very high in the standings. Basically third, London Spitfire, a team that people were saying this will surely be the team that outs New York Excelsior. Of course, they were wrong. Of course, Jonak's still the greatest, apparently. But as I've watched this team, I've been more and more confused as time has gone. I don't really understand what they're doing with their roster. Like everybody thought, like kicking out Bishop, they were finally bring sanity, but turned out he might have been the only sane voice. I'm not exactly sure. Nobody knows. I actually think that there's like a straight up civil war going on in London Spitfire between the 2 factions of players. I don't know how exactly it was divided. But certainly, like, there's certainly a war for playtime in that team, and they're getting in each other's way. But I will say, through all of that, I think Prophet's been proven to be a world-class player.
Definitely, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. The only thing for me specifically that kind of limits him in terms of like him overtaking that kind of #1 spot away from Fleta in my eyes is that he does have a very distinct style. Yeah. Where, you know, see him on Tracer, he does play similar to Bunny. Why it's facilitated a little bit more is because of the synergy between him and Gesture, where they dive together very well. Gesture keeps tabs on him, or maybe that it's Prophet communicating where exactly he's kind of attacking from and what position he's in at all times. Hard to tell without, you know, knowing the comms, but what I can say is that strategy has worked for them in the past, and he continues to play it, you know, even with other heroes. You look at his Junkrat, he just randomly, you know, one game, I don't remember who, I think it might have been against Boston, I'm not sure, but he drops down in Nepal Sanctum with Junkrat and just mechanically outplays two people. It's like you really can't ask that, and you really aren't going to get that from many other players outside of the league, but that is a very distinct style that only a few players have. That, again, you know, could be abused, and it looks like it has been, especially with, you know, his, you know, partner in crime in Birdring, you know, taking a absence for the team from whatever reason.
Yeah, he got captured in the Civil War. Maybe. Perhaps. I don't know. Like, nobody really knows. I'm just saying, like, London, like, everybody's focused on Dynasty, but, like, London has, like, some weird problems.
Oh, definitely. They definitely do.
Like, yeah, like, I don't know what to say, man. Like, I still think they're going to be one of the best teams, but I just don't, as they are now, I don't think they stand a chance to against New York, basically.
I think they have their peak, if they could hit their peak again.
Okay, I guess if they hit their peak, yeah, that's possible.
Yes. But are they? That's something only they are going to have the answers for.
Yeah.
Because if they continue to, you know, if they continue to run amok as much as they are, or as much as, you know, what they're alleged to be, then it's going to be rough, because you're never going to build that synergy between the team again. Maybe, you know, trust has been lost because you're basically, like you said, maybe there is a civil war going on. It's tough to kind of recuperate from that. Yeah. And if they can, you know, then great. Then we're going to have a banger of a Stage 4 final, and perhaps, you know, an amazing Season 2 or Season 1 grand finale. But it's not looking that great.
Yep. Now we go to the second team, the one nobody expected to be this high. Boston Uprising. A team that has decided to call Huck the president. And
President of Gaming.
President of Gaming. Is that the official title? Basically,
so.
Yeah. Basically, I just find it funny because I know Huck from StarCraft 2, and if you know Huck from StarCraft 2, he actually spent some time in Korea as a pro gamer, and he specifically stayed in the OGS house with this other guy called MC, and now both of them have these super larger than life personalities, and MC actually did get the nickname the Boss Toss and the President Toss in StarCraft 2. The Obama Toss, and now Huck has decided, you know what? I was also a Protoss in that house. I was also one of the great StarCraft 2 players. I will also be called the president from now on. And so here we are. And Boston is a very good team, despite everybody not really like buying into this team. And I'll go ahead and say I think everybody was like correct in like, assessment to begin with. It's not like we really had a lot of information.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about?
Difficult.
Yeah, it was difficult to know, like basically, right? Yeah, like how would you know?
You could look at the players individually and go, yes, Dream Casper looks like he is a great prospect. Maybe he'll be on a contenders team. You know, you look at Note. You know, Note looks fairly good on Toronto Esports. Maybe he'll be on a contenders team. You know, nobody could have known that if you put all these parts together, that they play above and beyond what they have shown in the past.
Yeah, I'm not even sure Huck knows. Like, I'm sure he'd deny that, but I'm pretty sure. I'll go ahead and say I don't think even Huck could have predicted like it going this well, considering like all the other circumstances that went through the season, like Gamsu taking a day off, Dream Casper disappearing.
Yeah.
Right. So, bunch of bumps that they. But unlike Dallas Fuel, they don't trip over and then argue about it for months at a time. So. Here we are,
and I can't imagine why that is, and I, you know, that again.
I can't imagine how important management is. Me neither.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that structure is and why you should never trade off a player that almost is trying to establish that structure. But that's just
rest in peace, Kusta. Kusta's in a better place now, literally and figuratively. So. Actually, I think it worked out for Kusta, even though like he sounded like he was sad. Like, wait, I was doing so well. I was about to say, nope, get out. Like, okay.
Yeah, you better leave. Like, all right, I guess.
But yeah, basically, Boston is doing very well. As you've pointed multiple times, dive is immaculate in a sense.
Our dive is incredible. You know, can they overtake New York? We've seen that there's still a large delta. There's still a large gap between first and second in that sense, where New York just has a lot of the answers that nobody else has the questions to pose to them. They are that kind of one step ahead. Maybe they're even 2 steps ahead. It's it's kind of hard to judge.
It looks like they're like 5 steps ahead, but
exactly when they try, when they kind of take the Bruce Lee ankle weights off, they look fairly unbeatable. There's only a few teams that I could even mention, and I would have to give them the most optimal scenario where they play at their complete peak to even challenge them. So
Boston at their complete peak, Volskaya got a draw.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay.
Like, that's saying something.
So yeah, basically I think Boston's very good. Actually, there's not much else to say about this. I think they're going to the playoffs.
Oh, definitely.
I think they are going to be like the second best team still. Like, unless London get their shit together, I still think that's gonna be the plan. Unless, I guess, of course, this counts any patch changes. Yeah. Because we don't know about that. Like, we can't predict that. No. Not psychics, but here's the thing about. So I guess I'll just move on to New York. I guess.
Okay. Sure.
Like when I said they were 5 steps ahead, did you know that's actually a famous Rafa quote?
Really?
Yeah. So basically, before Rafa was known, before he was a huge name, and he was coming up in the scene, and then like he did this interview, and they asked him what is your style as a Quake player, Quake duelist? Like, I'm the guy who reads 5 steps ahead. And of course, this became
that kind of plays into it, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, this became a legendary meme at the time. Like, man, this kid's so cocky. He thinks he's 5 steps ahead. As it turned out, that was literally what he was doing, and then he proved it on the server. He was literally 5 steps ahead of everybody, despite everybody else having comparatively better aim, better mechanics than he did. He just knew everything they were going to do before they did it. So everybody thought he was map hacking, but as it turned out, he was actually just that smart. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because that's actually what New York Excelsior is doing. And it's even funnier because not only are they doing... Here's the funny thing on New York Excelsior. So we already talked about Jonak breaking the paradigm as a player. He has already given the Jonak syndrome to a bunch of other players unintentionally, right? Then you already have the fact that I think Sabiobi might actually be this best tracer. Like, it's hard. Like, he's certainly up there in the discussion. I don't know if I would willing to give that to him just because it's like his team's so good, but he's certainly in the discussion. And who else was like really fucking crazy? I have to go look. Like, I remember their lineup was like ridiculous. Arc, yeah. Basically, I think Arc's actually the best Mercy.
Definitely.
And everybody else is still like really good. I think Libero is basically like second or third best like flex player straight up.
Yeah, he's like, he has his moments where he definitely kind of feels like he gets carried or isn't playing up to the same level that a lot of his teammates are. But he has always been that catalyst. I mentioned this before. If he isn't just hard backpacking a game, he has the hero pool to really facilitate his entire team no matter what. He can play flex tank. He can play... I wouldn't be surprised if he could play support. He can play legitimately pretty much every other DPS hero in the game, so much so that New York has crafted strategies, specific strategies around him using those heroes so he can hard carry.
Yeah, so like, basically like you have like 2 hyper specialists in like Jonak and Sabiobi. You have this flex guy who's like incredibly good and can carry games on himself. You have a bunch of really good support players, then really good role players. Then you have Arc, who's arguably the best Mercy, right? And so that's already disgusting enough, because in terms of skill, they're already beating everybody. And they were already beating everybody at the beginning. Then they got their shit together by the end of Stage 1 as a team, as a unit. Then somehow Jonak fixed his ult problems, because that was like his first and biggest glaring weakness, I thought. Yeah. So that's fixed. And then apparently like their coach and like strategy members like are creating anti-strats all day long. And then the time they stop doing it, they bring in Pine. They're like, oh, fuck it. See if you can beat us without us trying. Apparently, nobody can beat them when they're not trying either. So they, like I said, they're literally like 5 steps ahead, because you got to go through Jonak. You got Jonak and all of the problems he comes as a player, as a unit, basically as a strategy. All the anti-strats of the team. The fact that team is already more skilled than you are. The fact that as a team, as a unit, they're already better than almost every other team in this league. And then the fact that they can also throw in Pine there just to fuck with you. Like,
yeah.
Right? 5 steps ahead.
They are the kind of ultimate anime boss. You know, you look at like a tournament arc and your favorite shonen anime, and you know, you look at Jonak as the final boss, you know, this head mafia guy, and all of his disciples just have this innate ability to just dominate you in one way, shape, or another. You're never going to be more flexible than Libero. You probably won't beat Meko in some sort of, you know, peel/dive duel. You probably won't beat Pine if he pops off, but there again, I guess that could be, you know, a double-edged sword in some sense. But
like
know,
they don't.
it's proven
The trick is they don't even need to use Pine all the time. So
yeah, no, exactly.
Like Pine on another team be like a starter, and this team is like, oh surprise, I got you. Like, oh no, not Pine.
But I think that's actually like a good thing for him, because
yeah, that's great for
Pine. Needed to kind of come in and be that explosive force, it's hard to do that game after game after game. So peppering him in and using him as like an ace in the hole, I think it's a great strategy. And you know, I really have to give it hats off to Pavane and Wizard Young. I think they've shown what coaching staff can be, and they've done a great job.
And you know what's even more fucked up is there's this dude named Flower. He's coming into the league eventually. Yeah. Also on this team, so I was like, How many players do you actually need to fucking hoard on this team, man? Like, this ain't right. This ain't right. So yeah, actually go ahead and say I think New York Excelsior gonna win this one. I actually think they're gonna go with the same game plan they did the last one, or like they kind of like cruise their way through the first few weeks, then they ramp up, win the playoffs, then they seriously ramp up, win the other playoffs, and then they're good. They're gold.
I think some serious seeds of somebody would have to sow some serious seeds of dissent within that team to really crack them open from the inside, because I don't think you're going to do it mechanically unless for some reason some sort of odd patch change happens. You know, stage 4 again, can't predict it too much because, you know, it could be very volatile, it could be standard. From what we've seen so far, it's hard to say, but from what we see now, yes, they're clear and by and away the favorites for not only stage 4 finals, but the seasonal playoffs.
Yeah. Sounds about right. I think that covers it, actually. Was there anything else I needed to ask you? Not at the moment. I will actually be, but you will see celebrating on Dragon's inevitable defeat, 040. You heard it here first. They had 20 chances to prove me wrong. They've already given 10 of them away. We will see about the last 10. We will see about the last 10. Please please destroy them. I guess I will give my final shout out. If you haven't read it, you should read. Obviously, you should read Volamel stuff. Obviously, the last Overwatch Highlander, the last of the great content creators left before he moves on and becomes an analyst of some rich team. So read this stuff for it. That goes away. But the other thing you should read is my metaphor for Twitch Plays Pokemon as Dallas Fuel, because I actually think that perfectly explains everything you will ever need to know about what is wrong with Dallas Fuel. Do you have any shout-outs?
No, I thought that piece was quite creative. I thought it was, you know,
quite accurate.
Yeah, no, it did hold a lot of merit when you looked at it, and when you did give it a read. You know, the title could dissuade you. You know, like Twitch Plays Pokemon. Like, what does this have to do with anything? Just, you know, give it a chance.
Yeah,
it does. It is a kind of an eye opener. It definitely shows you some apt analogies that you know are pretty accurate. So
pretty accurate.
Definitely give it a read. I think it's, if you don't necessarily even agree with it, I think it's vastly entertaining.
Yeah. All right. So that's about it. I'll see you guys later.